Hello, my name is Marcus Warner, and today we are finishing our piece of epic battle music. This episode is going to be quite short comparatively to the others, as we've done most of the legwork now. Last week we had everything pretty much together. I sent it away to the people that commissioned me, and they were delighted with it, and just said that they're looking forward now to hearing vocals layered in with it as well. So since talking to them, I've actually spoken with Fatma. We discussed what kind of parts I was looking for, the way that it was to be sung, went through the piece section by section. I'm very adverse to dictating all the way through what the vocalist should sing, if it can be helped, due to the fact that I think a bit of creative freedom and input from the vocalist can actually really elevate a piece, because very often they will think of things that I didn't when writing it. We ended up discussing for about an hour how the piece should go, but in the end we came to having a sort of cohesive set of notes for Fatma, as well as parts that she could be a little bit more experimental with. Last either 4 bars or the very last 2, again, just dramatic, epic, warlike, shouty, long notes.
I think it would be quite authentic if, even when I was doing like softer sounds from almost a minute in, lazy endings to the notes just to make it sound more authentic.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? I might have to just show you. Kind of drop off in pitch, but like within reason, obviously, like not like glissando.
When you first come in, it can be a little bit more light and delicate, and then gradually as you go up in pitch and volume, just a little bit, but then really sort of bring the harshness in at the first up to the first drop. Yeah. Everything cuts out, dies down, and then we have the sort of lighter singing at 2:21, building up, then 2:35 just stop, and then the new main theme takes over. So let's go through it. We're going to sort out the vocals first and then add a few finishing touches in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go out on a limb and master the track and then send it to the people that have commissioned me. Normally I'll send them another draft, but in this instance they've said that they're probably going to be absolutely fine with it. If they decide that maybe the vocals aren't to their liking, then things will need to be changed. But in that instance I can go back to the original project, change anything that needs to be changed, and then put that new bounce into the mastering project, because the likelihood of the overall piece changing timbre that much is pretty slim. Sounds utterly incredible. I tend to get all the boring structural stuff and crossfades and that kind of thing done out the way first, and then what I'll do is normally bounce that out, then put it through flex pitch if it needs it, then I'll bounce it out again, making sure that I've not adjusted the volume or put any effects on it, and then finally I'll add my compression and EQ. And if I need to go back, I'll keep everything on the same project so it's easy to go back for each step. Just make sure that you name the tracks really clearly, because it gets really confusing very quickly. In this instance we don't need any flex pitching, so we're not going to have a track for flex pitch. I'm going to start moving a few bits and pieces around and try and condense all of these take tracks onto 1 or 2 lines if I can. I didn't want to have vocals all the way throughout the piece because it tends to make the structure a little bit flat, and the bits that are more impactful lose that impact due to the fact that vocals remain consistent. So I'm going to be compressing the vocals first, and you can see here, like in this section, we have moments of extreme quiet, which are then followed by moments of extreme loudness. Bringing them down together will help smoothen out the vocals and make them tie into the piece a lot better. Straight away I know with vocals that I'm going to be wanting a fast attack and a fast release time. It really depends on the instrument for this, but with vocals, because they tend to fluctuate so quickly in dynamic range, it's good to have a fast attack and a fast release. One of my lecturers at university said if you're doing more than -6 decibels of compression throughout the piece, unless it's a stylistic choice, it's probably a bit of an overkill. Being a bit intensive here, we're going up as far as -10, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to a quieter section and see how that compares. We can hear the difference just with this bit in particular. And then without compression it sounds more like this. So a lot less intrusive, especially when we've got this quiet intro section. That might require some adjustment later, but for now that's pretty good. And now what I'm going to do is look at EQing it. The first thing I normally do when I get to EQing is I'll do a low cut. And I'll make that low cut as high as I possibly can to remove any unwanted frequencies that aren't needed. There's some bass frequencies, but not really a lot. Even with the compression we can't hear it, but we'll filter it all the way up to there. Next, what I'll normally do is look at the lower harmonics and see if they can be brought down in any way, shape or form. Wave shape or form, ha ha ha. We look at the harmonics and we can see that this one between 500 and 1000 hertz is standing out quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this node here and just drop it down. And then at 1000 hertz we hear it started to stand out again. So I might make this a little bit fatter, bring it up a little bit as well. Let's have another listen. There's two dangers though of continuously filtering out frequencies that I don't like, and that's that A, I'll end up with something that sounds really weak, or B, I'll just end up with a load of treble. So the best thing to do really is go easy on it and try and put in as little work as possible. Luckily Fatma owns a really good quality microphone and it actually brings out the best in her voice. So that's pretty good, and now we're going to look at some reverb. If you have Logic X and you haven't already updated to a version that's got Chroma Verb, do it, because Chroma Verb is like the best thing that Logic has introduced in recent years. It is just a beautiful It is just a beautiful reverb plugin, and it's amazing the sounds you can get out of it. And the fact that you've got so much flexibility as well. You can just create something that goes up to 100 seconds. Normally it's not advisable to have a reverb tail that's any longer than 2 or 3 seconds, especially with vocal work that's got lyrics, because everything tends to muddy together. With Chroma Verb, just literally use the room one that it comes as standard size and density up at 100%. Distance 100%, and then just tailor the decay to your liking. And I'm going to assume with dry it should always be about 100%, and then wet it kind of depends, but I normally find that any more than 30 just sounds a bit corny. We'll see though. My favourite delay plugin is without doubt Delay Designer. Very rare for me to use anything other than this, other than if I need a really simple echo, in which case I'll use the echo plugin. So I'm probably only going to have 1 or 2 taps at most. I'm going to filter out a lot of the high frequencies, probably to around mid-high range there, and then bring up this bottom one here so they're not playing the really low fundamentals. Normally pan one to the right and one to the left, or vice versa. And I'll make them a little bit less wide so that they feel further apart from each other. One of the inbuilt plugins that I really love in Logic, and I use all the time, is sample delay. It adds a delay of a few samples to either the left or the right channels, or both if you want them. The trick with this is, if we have no delay on one channel, but then a tiny delay of probably no more than 1,000 samples on one side, we don't hear the delays as being far apart enough to actually be a delay, but instead it just makes it sound like the sound is spread out. It sounds pretty good, but then if I put it there after the EQ and the compressor, turn it on, and then have a listen to this. It doesn't work all the time, and one thing to know when mixing is that your mix should work in mono as well, just in case. But if I take this down a notch, probably to around 200, so it's a lot less obvious, it'll just make the vocals sound a little bit thicker. Then what I can do with the harmony vocals is I can spread them out a little bit further using the sample delay so that they have separation from the main vocals. If I hold down the Alt key and then just drag everything across, go to the sample delay on the harmony and then make that about 1,000. One thing that helps as well is a noise gate which filters out any sort of sounds that are below a certain threshold. This can be sort of background noise from the audio recording. This should really come in before you do any compression. So we put the noise gate at the top because I forgot to do it earlier, and this is what we get. That just cleans up the audio recording a little bit, gets rid of any unwanted sounds in the background. Alright, so those vocals are sounding pretty damn good. So the next stage is going to be adding in some final finishing touches. Those finishing touches will be mark tree, reverse cymbals, effects like reverse pianos, and I'm going to create the master for the track. I can't play you the whole thing, but I'm going to play part of it for now, and the entire track will be uploaded at some point in the future on this channel. If they want any more changes after this, it shouldn't be too hard to implement them. The mastering process for me is going to take probably about a day or so. Very similar to how you'd master any conventional pop piece of music. So you can look it up. There's plenty of tutorials out there on YouTube already. But if anybody really wants to see it, I might consider making a video on my mastering process in the future. But it certainly is its own separate video because it will take a long time with this. So I hope you learned something during this video series, and I hope you enjoyed watching and listening to the music with me. And if you have any other requests for videos that you'd like to see in the future, please let me know by leaving a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you in the next video. Thank you for sticking around with me. I'm terrible at outros. That's it. Bye bye.